We continue now at the top of Daf Mem Daled Amud Aleph and Meseches Bava Basra. This is Bava Basra Daf 44a. On the previous summit, the Gemara brought a brisa which made a distinction between somebody who sells a house or a field. In such a situation, if the mocher sells it to the lokeach, he's not allowed to testify regarding that house or field to keep it in the hands of the lokeach. And the language of the brisa is Memnesha Achrayuso Olav, because the responsibility, he has responsibility on it. However, the brisa makes a distinction and says, let's say he sells him a para or a talis, a cow or a talis. So then he is allowed to testify, and the reason is because there's no achrayus in that situation. And the question was, what exactly is the difference here between a bias and a sada, and a par and a talis? And Rav Sheshas answered, we're actually talking about a situation where a gazlan steals this property, talking about the bias and the sada, steals the bias or the sada from the nigzal, and then the gazlan goes ahead and sells it to a lokeach. And so it's saying that the nigzal is not allowed to testify on behalf of the lokeach. And the reason why the nigzal is not allowed to testify on behalf of the lokeach is because the nigzal really has a self-interest over here. The case over here is somebody's protesting and saying it never even belonged to the nigzal. This ma'arer is coming along and protesting. And the reason why the nigzal is not allowed to testify on behalf of the lokeach is because really what he's trying to do is get it in the hands of the lokeach, because for whatever reason, it's easier for him to take the lokeach to court rather than the ma'arer. That was all explained on the previous summit. But the Gemara now asks on this approach, V'lukma begazlan. But why make the case so complicated? Why do we have a case over here where the gazlan steals it from the nigzal and then he sells it to a lokeach? What do you need that step of selling it to lokeach for? Just have that the nigzal will testify on behalf of the gazlan, because again, it's easier for him to deal with the gazlan than with the ma'arer, and just keep it simple. You don't need to have a sale at all. Why does Rav Sheshas need to introduce that there's a lokeach at all? And the Gemara answers to that, Mishum de kaboy lemisna seifa, because the end of the brisa, there you actually do need a lokeach, because again, the whole point, the brisa was contrasting a case of bias and sada with a case of para or talis. Again, it says mocher lo para, mocher lo talis. It says if he sells him a cow, he sells him a talis. So over there we said that he is allowed, the nigzal is allowed to testify on behalf of the lokeach, but it's only if there's a lokeach. The davka mecher, only in a situation where there's a sale, to have a leyish v'shina rishus, because then what happens is you have a situation where it's stolen from the person, and the person who was stolen from, the nigzal, was miyayish, and then that gazlan sells it to someone else. That's called a shina rishus, and then the lokeach actually will fully acquire it. So in that situation, if the lokeach already fully acquires it, he's never going to get the item back. That's why he's not considered nogea b'davar, and he's allowed to testify against the ma'ara to help it stay in the hands of the lokeach. It's only by a mecher where you have yish and shina rishus. Aval lo mecher, but let's say aval lo mecher, but let's say he didn't sell it to hadrole, where in such a situation it's still in the hands of the gazlan. Now the nigzal will be able to get it back from the gazlan. So the nigzal has a self-interest over here to keep it away from the ma'ara and rather in the hands of the gazlan. So in that case, no, he's not allowed to testify. So since that had to be the case of the seifa, so tana reisha nami machar. So also in the reisha we had a case where he sold it. But the Gemara continues v'seifa nami. But even in the end case of the brisa, nihid miyayish migufe. Granted, if there was yish and shina rishus, he'll never get back the object. But midame miyayish. But what about the money, the value of the object, that he's still able to get from the gazlan? And so therefore it is to his advantage to keep it away from the ma'arer, to say that he was actually the owner, the nigzal saying that he actually was the owner, because he's going to want to get the money back from the gazlan. And the Gemara says, lo no tzrich, it's necessary to miss gazlan. The case over here is where the gazlan died. So if the gazlan died, he's never going to get back the money. The Tanan, as we learned in the Mishnah, there's a Mishnah in Babba Kama, hagozel umachel as bonav, let's say a person steals and gives it to his sons, v'hiniach lifneim, leaves it to them, peturim milashalim, then they are patur, they're exempt, they don't have to pay in that situation. They don't have to pay damim. You already have, again, if you have a situation where you're not going to get back the object, and now you're not going to get back the money as well because they are patur from paying the money, that would be a situation, again, where he has no negius, he has no bias in the situation. That's why he's allowed to testify. But the Gemara continues, v'lukma biyorish. But then if that's the case, why, if the gazlan already died, so why have a buyer at all? Why have where the gazlan sold it to a buyer? Just have it by the yorish. There's somebody that inherited it. And so then again, you have a situation of yish and shina rishus, and you're never going to get back the object or the money. Why have a situation where he's selling it at all if the gazlan died and left it to a yoresh? The Gemara says it works out according to the one who says rishus yoresh lav kerishus lokeach dami. There is a mandamer that says that the rishus, when it goes into the ownership of the heir. It's not the same as a lokeach, and you don't have shinui rishus in that situation. So shaper, that would work out well, because then we could say again by yoresh you don't have the shinui rishus. That would be problematic. But according to the one who says that the ownership of the yoresh is like an ownership of a buyer, meaning there is a yush and shinui rishus. So again, what are you going to say? Just have a case of the yoresh. You don't need to introduce a sale at all. Viod kashalei li Abaye, and furthermore, it's difficult to Abaye this entire explanation of Rav Sheshes because the language of the brisa doesn't fit. It gives language that the reason why by a house and a field he's not allowed to testify is because he has achrayus. There is achrayus there, and then there's no achrayus in the case of the par and the talis. That's not the reasoning. The language of the brisa should be because in one case he'll be able to get it back. That's in the case of the house or the field, and in the case of the movable objects where you have yish and shina rishus, he won't be able to get it back. That's what the brisa should have said, and so therefore the Gemara rejects the interpretation of the brisa of Rav Sheshes and instead presents an alternative explanation. Elakid Rav and Bar Shmuel. Rather, the way to explain the brisa is like Rav and Bar Shmuel. Again, just to review the language of the brisa. The language of the brisa is one who sells a bayis or sadeh. He is not allowed to testify because achra yuso olav. He has responsibility, and that's not true by par or talis. There he is allowed to testify because there's no achrayas, and so the explanation is going to be like Rav and Bar Shmuel. The Yomar Rav and Bar Shmuel mishmei de Shmuel, because Rav and Bar Shmuel said in the name of Shmuel, hamocher sadeh lechaver shelo ba'achrayas. If somebody sells a field to his friend and he takes no responsibility on the sale, so meaning to say if that field gets taken away from the lokeach, the mocher is not responsible. But still, even though he's not responsible, ein meid lo aleh, he's not allowed to testify on behalf of the lokeach to keep it in the hands of the lokeach. He can't testify. Why? Now, even though you would say, what advantage is it to the mocher? Even if it gets taken away from the lokeach, the mocher is not responsible. He has no achrayas, so therefore there's no advantage. He should be allowed to testify. That's not true. There is an advantage, because if he testifies and keeps it in the hands of the lokeach, so let's say he has a creditor. So let's say now the ma'arer is not going to get it, and we're going to establish that it did in the past belong to the mocher, and now it belongs to the lokeach. That means a bal chov, a creditor of the mocher, will be able to collect from there. There's going to be a shiba, there's going to be a lien, and so therefore in that situation you can't testify. V'davka bayis or sada. The idea is that's only true by a house or a field. Avol para vitalis, but that's different. If it would be, let's say, be a cow or a talis, there you don't have that issue that a creditor will be able to collect from it. And the Gemara elaborates, lo mi bay, and we don't even need to say it in a scenario, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Mem Dalid Amid Beis.